Please subscribe, like and share this content. It means a lot to us. Thank you in advance. Cornell Law School. U.C.C. Article 3, Negotiable Instruments. Part 1. General Provisions and Definitions. Paragraph 3101. Short title. Primary tabs. This article may be cited as Uniform Commercial Code. Negotiable Instruments. Paragraph 3102. Subject matter. Primary tabs. A. This article applies to negotiable instruments. It does not apply to money, to payment orders governed by Article 4A, or to securities governed by Article 8. B. If there is conflict between this article and Article 4 or 9, Articles 4 and 9 govern. C. Regulations of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System and operating circulars of the Federal Reserve Bank supersede any inconsistent provision of this article to the extent of the inconsistency. Paragraph 3103. Definitions. A. In this article, 1. Acceptor means a drawee who has accepted a draft. 2. Consumer account means an account established by an individual primarily for personal, family, or household purposes. 3. Consumer transaction means a transaction in which an individual incurs an obligation primarily for personal, family, or household purposes. 4. Drawee means a person ordered in a draft to make payment. 5. Drawer means a person who signs or is identified in a draft as a person ordering payment. 6. Reserved. 7. Maker means a person who signs or is identified in a note as a person undertaking to pay. 8. Order means a written instruction to pay money signed by the person giving the instruction. The instruction may be addressed to any person, including the person giving the instruction, or to one or more persons jointly or in the alternative but not in succession. An authorization to pay is not an order unless the person authorized to pay is also instructed to pay. 9. Ordinary care in the case of a person engaged in business means observance of reasonable commercial standards prevailing in the area in which the person is located, with respect to the business in which the person is engaged. In the case of a bank that takes an instrument for processing for collection or payment by automated means, reasonable commercial standards do not require the bank to examine the instrument if the failure to examine does not violate the bank's prescribed procedures and the bank's procedures do not vary unreasonably from general banking usage not disapproved by this article or Article 4. 10. Party means a party to an instrument. 11. Principal obliger, with respect to an instrument, means the accommodated party or any other party to the instrument against whom a secondary obliger has recourse under this article. 12. Promise means a written undertaking to pay money signed by the person undertaking to pay. An acknowledgement of an obligation by the obliger is not a promise unless the obliger also undertakes to pay the obligation. 13. Prove with respect to a fact means to meet the burden of establishing the fact. Section 1201, B. 8. 14. Reserved. 15. Remitter means a person who purchases an instrument from its issuer if the instrument is payable to an identified person other than the purchaser. 16. Remotely created consumer item means an item drawn on a consumer account, which is not created by the payer bank and does not bear a handwritten signature purporting to be the signature of the drawer. 17. Secondary obliger, with respect to an instrument, means A. An endorser or an accommodation party, B. A drawer having the obligation described in Section 3414, D, or C. Any other party to the instrument that has recourse against another party to the instrument pursuant to Section 3116, B. B. Other definitions applying to this article and the sections in which they appear are acceptance, Section 3409, accommodated party, Section 3419, accommodation party, Section 3419, account, Section 4104, alteration, Section 3407, anomalous endorsement, Section 3205, Blank endorsement, Section 3205, Cashier's check, Section 3104, Certificate of deposit, Section 3104, Certified check, Section 3409, Check, Section 3104, Consideration, Section 3303, Draft, Section 3104, Holder in due course, Section 3302, Incomplete instrument, Section 3115, Endorsement, Section 3204, Endorser, Section 3204, Instrument, Section 3104, Issue, Section 3105, Issuer, Section 3105, Negotiable instrument, Section 3104, Negotiation, Section 3201, Note, Section 3104, Payable at a definite time, Section 3108, Payable on demand, Section 3108, Payable to bearer, Section 3109, Payable to order, Section 3109, Payment, Section 3602, Person entitled to enforce, Section 3301, Presentment, Section 3501, Reacquisition, Section 3207, Special endorsement, Section 3205, Teller's check, Section 3104, Transfer of instrument, Section 3203, Traveler's check, Section 3104, Value, Section 3303. See the following definitions in other articles applied to this article. Banking day, Section 4104, Clearing house, Section 4104, Collecting bank, Section 4105, Depository bank, Section 4105, Documentary draft, Section 4104, Intermediary bank, Section 4105, Item, Section 4104, Payer bank, Section 4105, Suspends payments, Section 4104, D. In addition, Article 1 contains general definitions and principles of construction and interpretation applicable throughout this article. Paragraph 3104. Negotiable instrument. Primary tabs A. Except as provided in subsections C and D. Negotiable instrument means an unconditional promise or order to pay a fixed amount of money, with or without interest or other charges described in the promise or order, if it 1. is payable to bearer or to order at the time it is issued or first comes into possession of a holder, 2. is payable on demand or at a definite time, and 3. does not state any other undertaking or instruction by the person promising or ordering payment to do any act in addition to the payment of money, but the promise or order may contain I. an undertaking or power to give, maintain, or protect collateral to secure payment, 2. an authorization or power to the holder to confess judgment or realize on or dispose of collateral, or 3. a waiver of the benefit of any law intended for the advantage or protection of an obliger. B. Instrument means a negotiable instrument. C. An order that meets all of the requirements of subsection A, except paragraph 1, and otherwise falls within the definition of check in subsection F is a negotiable instrument and a check. D. A promise or order other than the check is not an instrument if, at the time it is issued or first comes into possession of a holder, it contains a conspicuous statement, however expressed, to the effect that the promise or order is not negotiable or is not an instrument governed by this article. E. An instrument is a note if it is a promise and is a draft if it is an order. If an instrument falls within the definition of both note and draft, a person entitled to enforce the instrument may treat it as either. F. Check means I. a draft, other than a documentary draft, payable on demand and drawn on a bank, or 2. a cashier's check or teller's check. An instrument may be a check even though it is described on its face by another term, such as money order. G. Cashier's check means a draft with respect to which the drawer and drawee are the same bank or branches of the same bank. H. Teller's check means a draft drawn by a bank I on another bank, or 2. payable at or through a bank. I. Traveler's check means an instrument that I. is payable on demand. 2. Is drawn on or payable at or through a bank. 3. Is designated by the term traveler's check or by a substantially similar term. And IV. Requires, as a condition to payment, a countersignature by a person whose specimen signature appears on the instrument. J. Certificate of deposit means an instrument containing an acknowledgement by a bank that a sum of money has been received by the bank and a promise by the bank to repay the sum of money. A certificate of deposit is a note of the bank. Paragraph 3105. Issue of instrument. Primary tabs. A. Issue means the first delivery of an instrument by the maker or drawer, whether to a holder or non-holder, for the purpose of giving rights on the instrument to any person. B. An unissued instrument, or an unissued incomplete instrument that is completed, is binding on the maker or drawer, but non-issuance is a defense. An instrument that is conditionally issued or is issued for a special purpose is binding on the maker or drawer, but failure of the condition or special purpose to be fulfilled is a defense. C. Issuer applies to issued and unissued instruments and means the maker or drawer of an instrument. Paragraph 3106. Unconditional promise or order. Primary tabs. A. Except as provided in this section. For the purposes of Section 3104, a promise or order is unconditional unless it states I. An express condition to payment, 2. That the promise or order is subject to or governed by another record, or 3. That rights or obligations with respect to the promise or order are stated in another record. A reference to another record does not of itself make the promise or order conditional. B. A promise or order is not made conditional, I. by a reference to another record for a statement of rights with respect to collateral, prepayment, or acceleration, or 2. Because payment is limited to resort to a particular fund or source. C. If a promise or order requires, as a condition to payment, a countersignature by a person whose specimen signature appears on the promise or order, the condition does not make the promise or order conditional for the purposes of Section 3104a. If the person whose specimen signature appears on an instrument fails to countersign the instrument, the failure to countersign is a defense to the obligation of the issuer, but the failure does not prevent a transferee of the instrument from becoming a holder of the instrument. D. If a promise or order at the time it is issued or first comes into possession of a holder contains a statement, required by applicable statutory or administrative law, to the effect that the rights of a holder or transferee are subject to claims or defenses that the issuer could assert against the original payee, the promise or order is not thereby made conditional for the purposes of Section 3104a, but if the promise or order is an instrument, there cannot be a holder in due course of the instrument.